Dem 2020 candidate Tulsi Gabbard touts praise from Fox News host Tucker Carlson. Okay, what's going on here? Representative Tulsi Gabbard, a Democrat from Hawaii, has launched a long-shot bid for the presidency in 2020. Why a long shot? Because the media smears her at every opportunity. That's why. Aside from her low name recognition, Gabbard is also loathed by many Democrats. That's thanks to her questionable past on gay marriage. This, according to the article, that's thanks to her questionable past position on gay marriage and brilliant decision in 2017 to go on an unsanctioned fact-finding trip to visit mass murderer Bashar al-Assad in Syria, only to return with pro-regime talking points. Okay, so let's address that right there. Yes, she did have a past where she was very homophobic. That's the best way to put it. Yeah, that was in her past. She grew up with a very strict religious upbringing, and that was what she was taught. As she grew up, she evolved from those points of view. She has apologized for it many times, and she has a 100% score from the Human Rights Campaign. That means she votes for pro-LGBT 100% of the time. She has a 100% score. Not an 80% score, not a 75% score, 100. She has a 100% rating from them. She has apologized for those views many, many times. And, you know, and to be totally fair, it's not like she just held them when she was, 12 years old or whatever and didn't know anybody. She was in her 20s, still held those views. But I think that it's never too late for somebody to change and evolve, and I feel like she has addressed that many times over. The Syria thing, what she did was her job. She went to Syria for herself to see what was going on. She has a submission of dealing with people, of speaking with people, and she frames her own takes on the situation instead of just accepting what the corporate media shoves down our throats. Somebody in her position who deals with foreign affairs, who has foreign policy experience, that type of work ethic and pursuit of the truth should be applauded. But she's actually faced the opposite. Okay, so let's go back to the article that already is starting off strong. So it makes sense she would seek unconventional ways to get her message out. This is according to the article. So now they bring up Tucker Carlson. She went on Tucker Carlson, and they spoke about interventionism. Carlson and his ideological acolytes are fond of Gabbard. They share a similar skepticism of the alleged atrocities carried out by dictators like Assad. Both question his use of chemical weapons. Now, here's an interesting part in this article. It shouldn't have to be pointed out to Gabbard and Carlson that two ideas can coexist, that Assad is a brutal dictator who uses sarin on his own civilians, and that the United States should not wage reckless foreign wars. Can't that same message, or at least a similar message, be applied to the corporate media and all of the Democrats and Republicans who favor regime changes, who favor our intervention over there? Can it be, hey, nobody's saying Maduro is perfect. Nobody's saying that there have not been many errors since he's been around in Venezuela. What we're saying is we have no business supporting an illegal coup. Or same with Syria. No one's saying that Assad's a great guy, but people are saying that there is a civil conflict there. There's a civil conflict there that's very messy and very complex. And just kind of taking what the media says without any type of investigation, bombing a country before the operation to inspect chemical weapons even completed an investigation, concluding that you know all the answers, and bombing a country, which is what the United States did in Syria, that's not okay. It doesn't matter how you feel about Assad one way or another. We can't just shoot first and ask later, but we do all the time. Can't that same message be applied the other way around? Why does Tulsi Gabbard in particular need to hear that message? And also, getting to this particular segment, which I've watched this segment, Tucker Carlson mentions time and time again that him and Tulsi Gabbard agree on virtually nothing. They disagree on pretty much every issue, except for when it comes to interventionism. That's one of the things that Tucker has been outspoken about. In some recent, for instances, overall, I don't know if you can say that about him. If you look at his entire past, I'm sure there's been situations where he's been more pro-intervention. I don't recall him ever speaking out against Iraq or anything like that. I'm not saying it did or didn't happen. I don't know for sure, but I don't recall him ever being outspoken against Iraq or anything like that. But when it comes to Syria, he has been outspoken as far as, we shouldn't be doing that stuff. We shouldn't be intervening. So that's one point of agreement he does have with Tulsi Gabbard. And he let her speak about it. They both pointed out that they disagree on pretty much everything else. But what does the corporate media try to do? Well, and especially in this particular instance, in this particular article, they try to draw that association immediately. They try to, because they're hoping you look no further than the headline. And let's take a look at this headline. The headline is, look at everything that's in bold. Candidate Tulsi Gabbard touts praise from Fox News host Tucker Carlson. They're hoping you don't read anything other than that, so that you associate Tulsi Gabbard with Tucker Carlson. Two people who disagree on probably over 99% or 90% of things. Actually, 99 might be accurate. They agree on this one issue, so they talked about it. Tulsi talks truth on wars, so they're highlighting the fact that she shared it. So that headline could have been, Tulsi Gabbard and Tucker Carlson see eye to eye on intervention. Tulsi Gabbard and Tucker Carlson oppose war in this, for instance. Well, that'd be kind of too long of a headline, but you see the idea here. They don't want to give any leading details on the topic in the headline, which they could have easily done. They just want you to associate Tulsi Gabbard with Tucker Carlson. And again, they disagree on most things. This is the one thing they have in common. You could have even made the headline, Tulsi Gabbard and Tucker Carlson discuss one thing they have in common. That would actually be, I bet a lot of people would click that. I bet a lot of the general public would be like, well, I wonder what that one thing is. Then they'd find out, well, it's intervention. In some, for instances. So, and again, is Tulsi Gabbard a perfect candidate? Of course not. Is she worthy of criticism? Of course. But, again, there's a big difference between worthwhile criticism and smear pieces. And when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders, there are going to be a lot of smear pieces because they're not who the establishment wants. And it's important that you know the difference. And in this case, here's another smear piece. Here's another smear piece. They bring up the fact that she went to Syria herself to figure out what was going on, to try to better assess what we should or shouldn't be doing over there. And guess what? We shouldn't be doing stuff over there. That's what she concluded, because she went there herself. Because she has foreign policy experience, and she went there herself. She's not going to take the word of what our corporate media just spews out. Because when you do that, that's when you bomb countries before an investigation even happens. That's what you do. That's what Trump does. I'd like a president that doesn't do that. So, when you see pieces like that just highlight those things as a reason to smear her, instead of saying why the Democrats really don't like her. They don't like her because she's a genuine non-interventionist. She's an actual peace candidate. And there's a long history of Republicans and Democrats. There's that bipartisanship for you, getting peace candidates out of the way as soon as they can. Who were the first people kicked off the debate stage in 2008? Ron Paul and Dennis Kucinich. Two people that have very little in common. Dennis Kucinich, Ron Paul, very little in common. What's one thing they do have in common? They were peace candidates, non-interventionists. And here you go. Tucker Carlson, Tulsi Gabbard. Very, very little in common. Hardly anything in common. What's one thing they do have in common? Non-interventionism. But they just want you to make that association. They don't want you to think critically about interventionism or non-interventionism. They just want you to associate Tulsi Gabbard with Tucker Carlson. That was the point of that article. That was that article's goal. It wasn't to inform you. It wasn't to give you a perspective. Because all it talked about was how, oh, Tucker's people like her. Here's some reason the Democrats don't like her. And Tucker, it didn't mention that multiple times in that segment, Tucker Carlson says, we disagree on pretty much everything. Tucker Carlson says it. And Tulsi agrees. They're like, yeah, we don't, but, and she even says, thanks for letting me talk about this. So if that article, and I'm even saying, hey, you could have engaged in a little bit. I get it. You want to have a juicy headline. I get that. That's the world we live in. You want people to click your article or click your video. You want the headline to be attractive. You can't make a totally, like, boring whatever headline. So I'm saying, hey, here's the one thing Tulsi Gabbard and Tucker Carlson have in common. That could have been the headline. Pretty clickbaity. And people would be like, wow, I wonder what that one thing is. And it would have been more honest. So I guess technically I wouldn't make it clickbait, right? I mean, if a headline is kind of juicy, but it's actually honest, then that technically means it's not clickbait. I just misused that term, right? I'm pretty sure I did. Because clickbait is when you kind of mislead. Like, I mean, I guess it's just a juicy headline. Like, you're just making a good headline. You're making an eyeball, you know. I think you guys know what I mean. But that wasn't the point of this article. The point of this article was not to unpack an issue that has some unlikely common folks involved. Some commonalities between unlikely allies, I guess you would call it. The point of this article was to try to get you, the reader, to associate Tulsi Gabbard with Tucker Carlson. That was the goal of this article. So it's an intentionally misleading smear piece. And that's how we can tell the difference.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your